This section heading is called Editing Rule 200 to be stateful. So what we're going to do in this section is we're going to configure our stateless firewall to act statefully. And along the way, I'm also going to explain the technology that we're doing this on. So as it stands right now, we've got Alice has an SSH session established with the edge router. So we're going to start right there. So I'm going to try to keep things kind of at a minimal here because honestly, I could probably talk for hours about this operating system. All right, so a little bit about the OS. So this is BIOS, and it's put out by Brocade, and it is very Juniper-like. So for those of you that are not familiar with Juniper, Juniper is like the number 2 person on the block as far as with networking equipment. Now, when making comparisons, I will make comparisons to Juniper as well as to Cisco's iOS when describing this technology. Okay, so this first mode that we're in, this is known as operational mode. And if you're familiar with Cisco, think of it just like privilege exec mode. So the things that we can do within this mode is we can show things, we can clear counters, we can also disable, enable debugs, things like that. So this is operational mode. And if we want to go up to the next mode, we type configure. And within that mode, we can make configuration changes. So this is known as configuration mode, whereas in Cisco, it's called global configuration mode. So now, in a previous life of mine, I was a product sales manager. So I did a lot of Juniper training. And the whole marketing strategy behind Juniper was essentially to bash Cisco. So they basically said, look, when developing our operating system, we went out to all the Cisco engineers, we rounded them up, and we said, what don't you like about Cisco? And basically, some of the things that they did perfect on, I actually really do like. And this is, the same for Vios with Juniper. They're, like I said, they're almost identical. But some of the things I do like. So, for example, here, I hit the tab key and it spit out the possible options. So your tab key is like your help on here as opposed to your kind of shift question mark or your question mark within Cisco. Okay, so we're in configuration mode, and now we're going to take a look at the configuration files within here. So I'm going to do a show firewall. Now, another thing that they perfected on was in Cisco, what a lot of people don't like, myself included, is that when you autocomplete a command, it will kick you down to the next line. If you autocomplete here, it keeps you on the same line. So that's something that's really, really nice. And again, if you want to see the options after here, and I won't do it here because it will spit out a ton, but right here, if I wanted to get help, I just hit the tab key once and it actually spits out the possible options. So the only firewall names that we have defined in here is the WAN to DMZ. So I'm going to type WAN to DMZ and then hit enter. So this is pulling out a piece of a configuration file. Now your Vios configuration files, they're hierarchical just like Cisco's, but they're displayed much differently. So what we have in here is we have this concept of nodes, subnodes, and attributes. So we've got, and I'll just take a piece here, this piece right here. So we have the node rule 200, and then in curly braces here, within there, you can have any number of attributes and subnodes. So your attributes within here define values for specific parameters within the node. So for example, within rule 200, this value right here is setting it to accept. And then over here, you've got a description, and the description is shown over here. Then we have a subnode. So your subnode again, and then you got curly braces over here, and then we have our attributes once again, defining specific, values for within the node. So that's basically how your configuration files are set up. This is very Juniper-like, and it's very not like Cisco. So you've got, again, the two comparisons. All right, so now the next thing that we're going to do here is we're going to configure our stateless firewall to act statefully. So when you think of keeping track of state, I want you to think of that three-way handshake. So the three-way handshake, we had the SYN, SYNAC, and then ACK, right? So that's kind of like the three-way process, or the three-step process in order to establish a session. So we wouldn't expect to see them out of order. So now a stateful firewall will keep track of those communications to make sure that they happen in a proper order. And it keeps, like I said, it's keeping track of what they call the state. And I just think of it as like the order of things. Okay, so what we're going to do in here is first we're going to enable a stateful firewall. So we're going to do this by typing set, and we're going to set the firewall name, which is WAN to DMZ. We've got rule 200, and then we're going to type state, and then we're going to type new enable. So this is going to have our stateless firewall now act statefully. So we have a stateful firewall in place, but now our description that we have over here for our rule set, because now it's acting statefully, is no longer valid. So now we're going to edit this, or basically delete this and put in a new entry. So I'm going to type delete firewall name WAN to DMZ rule 200, and we're going to delete the description, and the description is that. Now we're going to set firewall name WAN to DMZ rule 200 description, and we're going to say it's going to be stateful web access now. So we're going to type commit to execute it, execute the commands. Again, your commands do not get executed until you enter this command. And then we'll verify that everything is good by typing a show firewall name, and then we can see over here now we've got our stateful firewall that's in place. Well, we got the name that's edited, and then down here this is what tells us that it's stateful.